So all eyes are on Hurricane Florence. Of course, we're hoping for the best, expecting the worst. Meantime, we have some in the liberal media who are twisting themselves into pretzels, trying to turn this hurricane news into something negative about Trump. I mean, it's amazing. We have people that are potentially going to lose their homes. They don't know what they're going to come home to after this is all over. I have here Amber Athey and Benny Johnson to discuss. Amber, you have a great example of the liberal media just going completely out of control when it comes to this hurricane coverage.
That's right. MSNBC's Andrea Mitchell had on Brock Long yesterday. He's the FEMA administrator, and she on several occasions tried to basically slam him for FEMA's response to the Hurricane Maria back in Puerto Rico ahead of Hurricane Florence. Now, one of the claims that she made was that there have been $10 million redirected from basically disaster relief funds in FEMA to ICE detentions. Now, as it turns out, and as Brock Long clarified on the program, the $10 million could never be used for disaster relief because of the way it was earmarked in the appropriations process. And even further, the funds were actually set to expire at the end of the year. So if they didn't use them for ICE detentions, the funds would have basically disappeared into thin air.
Yeah, well, Benny, you never want to let facts get in the way of a good story, right? I mean, what do you make of that? The headlines sound so bad. They're taking away money from FEMA. $10 million are going to go, to ICE detention centers. I mean, this is outrageous.
Facts don't care about your feelings, Steph.
Oh, they don't?
No.
I didn't know that.
Okay, have you heard this?
I've never
piece of
heard
wisdom?
that one before.
Yeah, it's from Psalms, the book of Psalms.
Okay.
Yeah, very special.
Big Bible fan.
Because I thought facts did care about my feelings, so anyways. So yeah, what do you think about the headlines and how misleading they are?
So about this story in particular, I mean, it was just egregious when Andrea Mitchell, was essentially just parroting talking points that were incorrect, but you've been seeing a lot of that. You saw Hillary Clinton tweet an egregiously fake piece of information about Brett Kavanaugh. I mean, egregiously fake. The most left-wing sites in the world fact-checked it and found it to be wrong. An idea that Brett Kavanaugh called abortion-inducing pills, birth control abortion-inducing pills. This is just wrong, but these talking points, I think, faster than ever, have been turned into canonized pieces of truth. And they start as talking points, they start as fake news, quite literally, and then get to the point where FEMA directors have to fact-check on live television an anchor whose damn job it is, 30 years in the business, damn job it is, to know this thing.
Yeah.
Before she talks to the director of FEMA, who, by the way, has a lot on his hands right now.
Yeah.
Right? Brock Long has a ton to do.
Well, it's an insult to
yes, exactly.
all of these people that are working part of FEMA, that are part of the recovery. And you also notice that there's this twist in the news, too, that they're really trying to play the race card here and make a comparison, assuming that the hurricane recovery is going to be pretty successful here in the U.S. Versus what happened in Puerto Rico, obviously our territory. But they were saying that this was a race thing, that President Trump's racist, and that's why the recovery there was slow. But they don't want to talk about the infrastructure or the power grid or the corruption in Puerto Rico altogether.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the reason that this death count has gotten so high, something that our editor Paul just pointed out, was that actually the doctors in Puerto Rico apparently don't know how to fill out death certificates, and that's why it's taken us so long to get this actual death figure from Hurricane Maria. Not to mention that a lot of the deaths in this GW study were actually incidental due to the lack of infrastructure in Puerto Rico, not because these people drowned in the hurricane, but because they got injured making repairs and couldn't get to a hospital because the roads are so bad.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of reasons for this. I think it's so disingenuous to blame this on Trump or to suggest that he's racist for the way that the government responded to this disaster.
Yeah, and the supplies that were just sitting there, I mean, almost hundreds of thousands, if not a million or more water bottles just sitting there that were never delivered to anyone. And so I think people do need to be held accountable. Everyone in the community, I know that they were struck, but they all have to work together to help themselves as well. But Benny, you have a great story. Bill Nye, the science guy, anytime he can be used.
The fake science guy.
The fake science guy, anytime he can go on the on the liberal media and talk about hurricanes. I mean,
Bill Nye,
wealth of information.
I think the rejoinder should be Bill Nye, left his only job that ever used science guy, because he was hired by Boeing as an engineer when he was in college. And what did he leave for?
A children's television show.
To work on his comedian career.
Ooh.
So the science master of the left, Bill Nye, who is not a scientist, who is a fake scientist with a Netflix show, that actually contradicts his show from the 90s, so those things are at war over how many genders there are. Bill Nye said that water's wet and that it comes from the ocean yesterday.
That's stunning insight.
But he also
really intrepid reporting.
That is, and he held up a giant canister to show that water is water and what it does when it's in a giant cylinder.
He also explained how cubic inches work.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was incredible stuff.
And you included a great quote in your article. It says, "Imagine this much water wherever you are, this much extra water in your living room where you're watching television or trying to play basketball. This much water causes all kinds of trouble." Really, Bill Nye? Really?
Who plays basketball in their living room?
Well, so I do. I play basketball in my living room.
Hopefully it's not carpeted.
It's a special
I don't think
thing.
the ball would bounce.
Benny, I think that's fake
I'm
news.
from
You're
Iowa.
not playing basketball in your living
I'm
room.
from
Come
Iowa.
on.
It gets very cold. Where else are
I'd
you
have to
supposed
see it
play
to believe
basketball?
it. Next time, Instagram it.
I'd love to see Benny ball out.
I don't
It's
even
called
think
Benny
you're
ball.
good at basketball.
It is actually called Benny ball, and it's because I was raised in such a poor family. We had to play basketball in our living room because we weren't allowed
You couldn't
outside.
afford a hoop outside.
Yes, it's so true.
Yeah, driveway hoops were a sign of privilege.
Let's not bring that up. That's going to get me emotional.
I guess my last thought on Bill Nye is he's just a climate change fearmonger, just constant. That's why they bring him on.
Yeah.
And again, this whole climate change thing, this is another thing that they're hitting the president with, is that this is all President Trump's fault. Actually, the Washington Post editorial board, they put together a piece that blamed Trump for Hurricane Florence.
Yes.
They are actually
complicit.
Yeah,
Complicit.
he's complicit. It's clearly everything's his fault. And the idea that he has some sort of responsibility in a hurricane is unreal.
So, I mean, let's look at Hurricane Sandy, for instance. New York has still yet not recovered, and large swaths of New Jersey have not recovered from Hurricane Sandy, which occurred under President Obama's watch. Now, I think that it would be egregious for Republicans to go out and blame the occurrence of a hurricane and people's entire homes, some of their fortunes, their businesses were lost. Many, many families have still not recovered from Hurricane Sandy, which was a devastating hurricane to strike the East Coast, also strike the East Coast. I think that it's very disingenuous, and it would be a very cowardly talking point to say that Obama was complicit in Sandy, or to say that the hardship that happened afterward is directly a result of President Obama. These are natural disasters. These have been happening since before humankind existed in the country in America.
Natural to the environment since the beginning of time.
I think it really is like a race to the bottom in the Trump blame game.
Yeah, this entire week has been the Trump blame game. I mean, look at what happened on the 17th anniversary of 9/11, where you had Joe Scarborough claiming that Trump was a greater threat to the country than the terrorists.
Yes.
I mean, in what world does this qualify as intelligent or enlightening commentary?
No, it's diminutive to the office, and at its best and at its worst, it's something that is going to spiral, which scares me because the pendulum swings both ways. And so Democrats do not want their Supreme Court justice being treated like Kavanaugh was just treated, right? If Merrick Garland got the Brett Kavanaugh treatment, Democrats would be up in arms. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, just today or yesterday, was giving a speech and said that she was appalled at the way that Brett Kavanaugh was treated. And she was thanking her lucky stars that she wasn't treated the same way.
Yeah.
When she was confirmed, I believe she was confirmed by a large majority
That's
of
right,
the
it's
Senate.
like 90%.
Yeah, a large bipartisan, and that's the way it should be, she said, and that's the way it used to be. And she, really the lioness of liberals, of that era of liberalism on the Supreme Court, she was disgusted by the way that the Democrats treated the polarization of a Supreme Court nomination process.
Well, it was quite the political circus, especially because we know that most likely he's going to be confirmed, like 99.9% chance.
Yes.
I want to move to this story, Benny. Every day, I never believed that people could be this terrible. I always, give people the benefit of the doubt, especially when it comes to liberal professors. And apparently a liberal professor shot himself in protest of Trump. I'm not kidding. This is real. Benny, take it from here.
Well, As per Article 8, Section 23, Amendment 4 of the U.S. Constitution, when an angry sociology professor shoots himself and screams the president's name, the president is duty-bound to resign office. And so this professor read the Constitution and understood that when he shot himself in Nevada at the small college that he taught at in Nevada, that the president was going to be impeached. I mean, that's just how the Constitution works. And so good for him. I mean, luckily we're no more Trump.
So
and
he's still alive.
It took a hero to emerge from the darkness and shoot himself.
Yeah,
stunning and brave.
Yep, and scream Trump.
It's
While he
so
shot
brave.
himself.
It's so brave.
Yeah.
He shot himself in the arm, right?
This guy.
He shot himself in the arm with a .22 caliber pistol. This is a professor. Sorry, I guess it's not a laughing matter, but it's become a laughing matter because
this is an example of Trump derangement syndrome that we've all been talking about, and just like the lunacy of the left, especially a lot of these college liberals who identify as being supporters of the Democratic Party and leaning left. This isn't like I've made this up. This is like studies. All the surveys that they've done. These professors actually admit it.
But isn't it
the culture?
It's strange. Okay, so
Anyways,
just the quick story is that the guy just ends up shooting himself. He goes crazy. He's a sociology professor. He's been on campus since 1993. Shoots himself in a bathroom and then comes stumbling out, bleeding everywhere, screaming, horrifying his colleagues, horrifying the students. He has a gunshot in his arm, and as he's passing, he faints. And as he faints, he says this was all because of Donald Trump. And he's now in custody by the police. The police have charged him with a lot of things, including the use of a firearm on campus, not having a permit, discharge of a firearm on campus. All these things are very illegal. And he did it all, I suppose, because of Trump. I mean, way to own owning the cons by owning yourself, by shooting yourself, by owning the libs.
Yeah, Amber, I thought liberals don't like guns.
You would think. Apparently, they only like guns in protest of Donald Trump.
I mean, that was like a bit of a head scratcher, right?
Yeah, it's really stunning. Well, as we could see, this guy didn't have a permit for the gun because people who actually know firearms and use firearms understand that there's a legal way to use them and follow the laws. It's like 99% of concealed carry permit holders have never committed a serious crime or used their weapon in an untoward way. So that just further proves.
Wait, Amber, could you just imagine if the headline was "Conservative Professor Shoots Himself in Protest of Obama"?
Well, that headline would never exist because there are no conservative professors.
Yeah, there are a couple, but most of them aren't. And I don't think they'd be crazy enough to shoot themselves in protest.
I mean, imagine if this guy was teaching you in your college classes.
Yeah, do you want your kids learning from some lunatic?
I feel bad for any parent that is paying, or any student who's working to pay $40,000 to $70,000 a year for college, and their professor is this crazy deranged idiot who would actually shoot himself in a political protest. I mean, that's just sad.
Yeah, but how lukewarm has your IQ have to be to go shoot yourself in protest of something?
It's unhinged.
I think that doesn't.
Well, he's in jail.
It seems to be a cell phone. That seems to be like the definition of cell phone by shooting yourself.
Yeah.
Also, Amber touches on a good point, and so do you. There's been a kind of alarming and horrifying use of leftists with guns recently. Yeah. Something that seems to be all but forgotten from the national narrative is that a Bernie Sanders volunteer and campaign worker asked members of the GOP if they were Republicans and then opened fire on them, wounding a number of them horribly. Thank God there were no deaths, but there very easily could have been. And he did that with a gun. I mean, that is the greatest act of political violence, directed political violence that this country, I think, has seen in a very, very long time.
Yeah.
And it's all but forgotten. But that was the left.
Many crickets.
Yeah.
That's all I hear is crickets. Yeah. Unbelievable. I want to move over to #MeToo. I just had to say it that way. I always say it like that.
Okay, Norm Macdonald, thank you.
Me too.
Thanks, Norm.
No, I like I said, I appreciate people coming out and making their claims, but also I don't like the Me Too movement because due process is lost, and I hate when people are just being accused, especially when we find out that they weren't guilty to begin with. Of course, some of the bad apples, bad guys are going down, women too, including one of the founders of the Me Too movement that everyone kind of forgot about. I mean, I haven't heard her name in the news cycle for quite a bit now. But you have a great article, Amber. It's Jeff Fager. He's out at CBS. CBS has a huge Me Too issue going on. Moonves, the head of CBS, resigned.
That's right.
Multiple women, I don't know, 6 is the latest? That just
12 against Moonves.
12 total came out against him. really serious accusations against him. He claims they're not true, but the Me Too movement, we believe all of the people that are accusing, right?
Well, I mean, not always, but in this case, there are so many victims that it's really hard to ignore. So the case with Les Moonves, he was the first to go from CBS. He resigned last weekend, and he had 12 women accusing him of a range of things, including sexual assault.
Yeah.
Jeff Fager is accused of multiple cases of sexual harassment and groping in the office. He was a longtime executive producer of 60 Minutes. And interestingly enough, the hypocrisy I see here in the liberal media with the Me Too movement, Jeff Fager was responsible for one of the most important investigative shows of our generation, 60 Minutes, right? And yet he sent a text to one of CBS's own reporters warning her that if she basically wrote an article about him, about these sexual harassment allegations that was negative, that she needs to be careful, basically implying that she might lose her job if she doesn't treat him in a fair manner. Whatever that's supposed to mean. Imagine if your supervisor, who was accused of groping your colleagues, sends you a text basically telling you to watch out if you report on what happened. And that's ended up being the reason why he was fired. CBS hasn't even completed the investigation into the sexual harassment allegations yet against Moonves or Fager.
Yeah.
So he was actually fired for violation of company policy for basically threatening that reporter.
Well, and of course, there's also claims that CBS had kind of a culture of hiding some of the claims. And I find it interesting, the media angle is that they were all over Roy Moore coverage, they were all over the Trump coverage, they were all over everything. And it's just amazing the double standards and the hypocrisy when they have a lot of things going on in their own building.
Yeah.
Right, Benny?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's horrific that a lot of the Me Too scandals come from within media, which is one of the most liberal, this side of academia, one of the most liberal controlled environments on the planet. I mean, NBC has been repulsive in their handling of their scandal. This was at CBS. NBC didn't allow the Harvey Weinstein reports to be published. Ronan Farrow's Harvey Weinstein reports, they wouldn't let them be published at NBC. Someone at NBC greenlit a button at Matt Lauer's desk that locked his door. Someone had to install that. I mean, think about the logistics of this. Someone had to go and install that, and someone had to pay for it at NBC, and this was inside the NBC building that locked the door so that he could assault women.
Well, it's just really disturbing because these people have so much power and they're setting the narrative for the country, essentially.
Right.
They're the ones that are shining light on the injustices happening. They're the ones that are supposed to be the watchdogs of government. I mean, that's our role too. Yeah. But the fact that all of this stuff is going on there really, it discredits them. I mean, how can you trust what you're listening from them if they are, allegedly all these things. And like you said, there's so many victims that we could assume that it probably did happen, but we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I mean, it just says a lot about the media.
It's almost
liberal media.
It's almost as though you should read the Daily Caller instead.
Yeah, great reporters here. We're going to take just a couple questions. I don't know if you guys want to help me. I can't really see from over here. Let's see.
Not a lot of questions, just a lot of comments.
Oh, I see idiots with 3 exclamation points. That's great. Thank you.
Oh.
Let's see. Daily Caller equals Daily Liars.
Oh, well, that's not very nice.
Saber-toothed crotch crickets.
That's great.
Well, I don't know.
Thank you all so much.
Wow, this is very great. This is
thanks for the great questions.
When I agreed to come on this Facebook Live, this was not part of the contract.
Okay, next time I'm cutting out the question part next time. There's not like one decent question. It's just all comments.
It's kind of like staring into the Rancor pit.
Okay, here somebody says the left-wing liberals have totally lost their mind. All of this is fake news. I agree with that. I do agree with that. Let's see. Well, I guess.
Oh, I play with my hair too much. Sorry, guys.
Oh, I didn't even notice.
Apparently.
Anyways, any final thoughts, guys? I guess.
I'm just gonna go shoot myself now. Apparently.
What? Just like a college professor?
Hey.
Somebody wanted to know what the government's doing with all the money. Yeah, I'm asking the same thing too.
Yeah.
Benny, final thoughts on today?
This was fun.
These are amazing.
Final thoughts on getting wrecked on Facebook Live? That's my air horn.
All right, hold on.
Oh, man.
sophomoric dialogue, talking with hands, everything bashing, could never be hired by other media stations. Which media stations have you worked for, Steph?
I actually worked for a CBS local affiliate. I worked for One America News Network. I worked for PBS.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
imagine that.
And you're on Fox News all the time.
Yeah, and I'm on Fox News all the time.
amazing.
And guess what? I've also been on MSNBC.
Use your hands when you're
Wow.
talking. Can we just do it where you guys leave hateful comments and when we just wreck you back? And that'll be
Yeah, that
And
sounds
some
like
of the
fun.
other local news stations and various radios and podcasts.
Steph,
Radio.
we're proud of you.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
What a
thank you,
resume.
thank you.
Shame on you.
Okay,
Steph
Betty,
has
but just
great
a
hands.
final thought on just the news cycle and Hurricane Florence or anything. And by the way, I mean, we're not supposed to get hit. We're in DC. But I prepared. I went out and got some water.
Oh,
yesterday.
you're one of the doomsday preppers.
Well,
Oh,
you just never
great.
know. You just never know. I mean,
Oh.
really small chance. I saw the clouds yesterday. It's raining already today. It looked a little suspicious. I'm new to town, so
Yeah.
wanted to, be ahead of the storm. So got some water. Whole Foods was totally out, so I had to go somewhere else. Other people were
Wow.
preparing. Got
Oh
some
my
canned
gosh.
food. Did you guys prepare for
Where
the
would
storm?
you get water? Like
CVS.
If something goes wrong, you couldn't possibly get it from.
Oh, you're making
the
fun of me.
faucet.
Okay. Anyways.
No.
If you lose power.
Okay, so here's a great Whole Foods story, and this explains why we need to drain the swamp. I was at Whole Foods just getting normal stuff on Monday, not really prepping, and I saw a man buy an entire wheel of cheese and remark to his friend that if the hurricane gets really bad, he's going to need this. And this is a giant wheel of like French aged cheese, and he's like $100, and I thought, wow, drain the swamp. This person does not need all that cheese.
a lot
Shame
of
on
cheese.
you.
Oh, you're here.
Yeah.
I like it. I didn't even think of getting a $100 wheel of cheese. I was just buying canned food. But anyways, Amber, and I don't normally eat canned food.
What
Your
is
final thought?
Oh, I
on
thought
just the
I was
news
supposed to talk about my
cycle?
hurricane prep.
Or if you did any
Amber
hurricane
can talk
prep.
about cat food.
I can talk about cat food.
Yes.
I will tell you that I have enough canned cat food to last 3 hurricanes.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh.
So I am running
Wow.
low on kitty litter, so I got to
Oh,
step
boy.
that up. Crazy cat
That's
lady
amazing.
life.
PETA, if you want to sponsor this show,
Yes.
Don't. PETA blocked me on Twitter a long time ago.
come on.
Okay.
They kill animals. It's terrible.
I heard that. Anyways,
Yeah.
well, thank you so much for watching, and we'll be back one of these days soon. Thank
More
you.
Or
hands.
not.
Using our hands.